Senator Morthland, great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
You led the charge calling for an audit of the FOID card system, and it turns out the system is badly broken. Are you surprised at what the audit showed?
In some senses, yes. In some senses, no. We knew it was bad. That's why we called for the audit. We knew there were problems with people not getting FOID cards, and we knew there were problems with people getting FOID cards. For instance, I have a friend who has a FOID card. He is a very slightly built, red-haired, very blonde, light-colored fellow, and he has a 300-pound African-American pictured on his own FOID card. I mean, there are stories you can tell time and time again. So we knew it was broken. We didn't know it was broken that badly, though.
Mm-hmm. When you look at it, I mean, there's a number of problems, and I know the Auditor General calling it serious deficiencies, but among them, a breakdown in the judicial system, and that in itself, from what I understand, creates a snowball effect. The state police don't get the information, then the FBI doesn't get it for their database on the National Instant Check.
Well, that's right. Here in Illinois, we have the FOID card program, and it's monitored and operated by the Illinois State Police. And also, as you mentioned, there's the federal database. And whenever anybody is found mentally incompetent by a judge, the circuit clerk is supposed to report that information both to the state police and to federal authorities. And it turns out that out of our 102 counties in the year 2010, only 3 actually made the report. So for those people who had those findings in a court of law, those findings were not reported in the vast majority of cases.
You know, and I know that the people who supported this called it a front line of defense, but according to, again, the Auditor General, he said that because of this, it really puts the public at risk.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, we want to be able to have people exercising their Second Amendment rights, but we also want to have responsible firearms ownership. And when we have people who are not capable of making good decisions, able to still be able to get the FOID card, be able to buy weapons and ammunition in the state of Illinois, that's not a good state of affairs.
Mm-hmm. Among the problems pointed out, anything specific that I didn't mention that really stood out, you think?
Well, I mean, there was that. There was also a huge outlay of overtime for people who work for the state police to try to process the backlog of applications. So, and we knew that that was likely to come out. But then when you find out, too, not only did we only have 3 counties making the reports, even of the reports, about half of them didn't contain proper information for the state police to be able to fully understand what the situation was in those cases. So we really have a problem with not having proper reporting in the state of Illinois. And, of course, to be perfectly honest, we have this extra layer of a FOID card here in the state of Illinois, and we're really an oddity for even having it.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting, too, because the state police, they were saying they spent over $200,000 in overtime, as you were pointing out. And now you have a spokeswoman, I should say, for the state police saying they've developed a task force to deal with this communication problem. A little late, don't you think?
Absolutely it is. You know, and when Illinois is the only state in the nation that doesn't have some form of public carry, concealed carry or constitutional carry, and then to know that we don't even have proper management of the safeguards that we supposedly have in place, it's a really sad situation.
You know, and you brought up concealed carry, and again, you guys are the Lone Rangers out there, but there's some talk and concern that some of the anti-gunners or the gun control advocates are going to try to use this audit as a way to keep concealed carry from getting on the books. Do you think that? Are you concerned about that?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. We really haven't seen anything that would be anti-concealed carry momentum. I mean, it's obvious that we're the outlier. We're the strange one. I remember last year during the debate, we were talking about concealed carry, and one of the Chicago legislators said, I can't imagine being at Lincoln Park in a crowd of people and knowing that somebody near me has a firearm on them. And I didn't jump up and say it at the time, but the fact of the matter is, if you're in a large crowd in Lincoln Park here in the city of Chicago, you do have someone near you with a firearm, and by designation, they're a lawbreaker. Why on earth wouldn't you want to have a citizen who is caring for their own protection and that of the other citizens? It just doesn't make any sense, and I certainly hope that we'll be able to get it done yet in this legislative session.
Mm-hmm. What do you deal with as far as finding a solution to the problem of the FOID card?
Well, I mean, my first thing would be to eliminate the program. but we're probably not going to go in that direction. We are working on trying to get legislation together to be able to improve the reporting for those people who are found mentally incompetent. The difficulty is that it becomes a separation of powers issue because it actually is the judiciary that's not calling for the reports to be sent. And we're looking at that very closely. So we're trying to figure out how the legislature can make it more effective to do the reporting, but without having a separation of powers issue. We don't want to do something that would be unconstitutional.
Boy, it never gets easy in Illinois, does it?
No, it certainly doesn't. It certainly doesn't.
But when you look at this, I mean, do you call this a dangerous situation because of the problems with the FOID card? How would you rank it?
Well, I think it is a dangerous situation. There's no doubt that when you have people who shouldn't be able to possess firearms, who are able to get them legally, even though we have these safeguards in place, that is a very dangerous situation. We obviously need to be able to get it under wraps, and we're working on it. It's just a thorny problem to sort out.
Yeah, and as you point out, under the system right now, people who shouldn't have a card to buy a firearm or ammo, they're getting a card, or they get to keep the card because the information hasn't been supplied to the people who need to know.
Right, either our state police or the FBI.
So do you think there's any chance you'll have a resolution anytime soon?
Well, all I can say is, we're working on it. We're working with all the parties involved, trying to come to a solution that makes sense, and we'll get it taken care of without being excessively burdensome on the taxpayers or on firearm owners. And so it's tough, but we're working on it, I guess that's all I can say at this point.
Well, it's a good thing you actually called for the audit, because it never would have been done. And it's, 40 years you've had the FOID card? My gosh.
Well, absolutely. And all of this, too, is related to the fact that last year the Associated Press made a Freedom of Information Act request to the state police and asked them to release the names and addresses of everybody who has a FOID card or has applied for a FOID card. And that would have been just absolutely dreadful to release that information, both for firearm owners and those people who choose not to have them. And consequently, of course, we took two steps. One, we made a change to our Freedom of Information Act, and I spearheaded that to make sure that the private information of FOID card holders was not released to the public. And then secondly, of course, I launched the audit, which was a better way of getting the same information, as dreadful as it was, but without compromising people's personal information.
Well, thanks for fighting the fight, and thanks for taking the time to talk with us, and we'll stay in touch, and you do the same.
It's my privilege. It's a real honor, and hey, thank you for the work you do. We all appreciate you.